Now, you may recall a few weeks ago last month, I had reviewed the first three Superman films to commemorate the anniversary of the Man of Steel. Now, since I review bad movies and make up for lost time for some of these, I'm about to tackle the worst of the bunch. So, is this one really that bad? Yes, it is. Even though I do have just a tiny bit of a soft spot for it, but I don't really like it that much. Here's a re-review of Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. My name is Doyle, better known to as the Big D, and this time around I bring to you a re-review of the 1987 superhero flick Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, released by Warner Brothers along with the Cannon Group and released by Columbia Cannon Warner Distributors in the UK. Directed by Sidney J. Furie and written by Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal, from the story by Christopher Reeve, who returns as the titular character with the two writers I mentioned. Gene Hackman returns, plus Jackie Cooper, Marc McClure, and Margot Kidder, plus John Cryer, Sam Wanamaker, Jim Broadbent, and Mariel Hemingway. Oh boy. Now, although it's the fifth film overall in the Superman franchise, after released 3 years after Supergirl, and an overall sequel to Superman 3. Also, it's the first film not to involve the Salkinds, who had recently done Santa Claus the movie before this, which that didn't do well like Supergirl did. It also marks the final appearance of Reeve as Superman, who agreed to return in exchange for a large salary and some creative control, where he contributed to a script dealing with nuclear disarmament. Well, shortly before this film's production, the Cannon Group suffered a major financial crisis that forced major budget cuts, and 45 minutes of footage were deleted after negative test screenings. Oh boy, everyone was not thrilled with this one. Many reviewers citing poor special effects, inconsistencies, and plot holes. Although this did okay, but not great though. So, before I get started, if you haven't seen my re-reviews of the first three Superman films, click on that card and it'll take you to the playlist. In case you might have missed them, or if you want to see them again. Now, I will re-review the other Superman films later on, like Superman Returns and Man of Steel. Okay, and I know since everybody don't like this, I'm only going to try and give half the story, and I'll give the other half once I give a bigger warning, okay? After a Russian space station is struck by debris, Superman swoops in to save the crew from drifting away into space. Later, at the Smallville farm he inherited from his deceased parents, Superman, as Clark Kent, uncovers the capsule that brought him to Earth and removes a luminescent green Kryptonian energy module. A recording left by his mother Laura states that its power can be used only once. He returns to Metropolis, where he finds Daily Planet has been taken over by David Warfield, a tabloid tycoon who fires Perry White and hires his own daughter Lacey as the new editor. Following the news that the US and the Soviet Union may engage in a nuclear arms race, Superman elects not to intervene and seeks guidance in the Fortress of Solitude. However, after Warfield sensationalizes the inaction, Superman announces before the United Nations he will rid the world of of all nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor breaks out prison again, due thanks to his nephew Lenny. Returning to Metropolis, Lex and Lee infiltrate a museum, steal a strand of Superman's hair, and create a genetic matrix. Lex converses with black market arms dealers and raves about Superman's actions and wanting to rearm the countries with nuclear warheads, and makes a deal with them to attach the hair to a nuclear missile. After the missile's test launch, Superman intercepts it and throws it into the sun. A glowing ball of energy is discharged, which develops into a superhuman. This nuclear man makes its way back to Earth to find his father, Lex, who establishes that while his creation is powerful, he will deactivate without exposure to sunlight. A vicious battle ensues between Lex's creation and Superman. While saving the Statue of Liberty from falling onto the streets of Metropolis, Superman is infected with radiation sickness by scratches from Nuclear Man's radioactive claws, and Nuclear Man kicks Superman into the distance with such strength that Superman's cape falls off. After the Daily Planet, which had been reformatted as a tabloid newspaper, publishes the headline Superman Dead, Lois Lane angrily seizes Superman's recovered cape. Lois ventures to Clark's apartment where she proclaims her love for Superman. Felled by radiation sickness, Clark staggers to his terrace where he retrieves the Kryptonian energy module and heals himself. Having developed a crush on Lacey, Nuclear Man demands to know where she is or he will hurt people. The encounter between Nuclear Man and the newly restored Superman is taken to the moon, which ends with Superman being driven to the moon's surface by Nuclear Man. Alright, I'm gonna get this going to continue to finish this. So I'll give you the next few minutes to stop this video. So go to the description box below and fast forward to the time below, okay? Because I'm not giving you 5 seconds. I'm going with this. There we go. All right, I'm going to finish this. So if you really hate this movie, well then tough luck. Here's the ending. You've been warned. Because if you didn't stop at the time below, Nuclear Man forces his way into the Daily Planet and abducts Lacey, carrying her into outer space. Superman manages to free himself from the moon, then pushes it out of its orbit, casting Earth into an eclipse, nullifying Nuclear Man's powers and leaving Lacey helpless in space. Superman rescues her and returns her to Earth, then recovers Nuclear Man, who is now lifeless, and deposits him into the core of a nuclear plant, destroying him for good. While then Nuclear Man becomes electrical power for the entire electrical grid. Perry White secures a loan to buy a controlling interest in the paper, making David Warfield a minority shareholder and protecting the paper from any further takeovers. Superman also recaptures the fleeing Luthors, places Lane in Boys Town, telling the priest that Lane has been under a bad influence, and then returns Lex to prison. Superman makes a speech that world peace cannot be achieved instantly, but gained patiently. Superman then flies into the sunrise for further adventures, again, just like at the end of the other 3 films. End of story. Alright, what did I think of Superman for the Quest for Peace? Well, as I've said, not great though. It's not great and what have you. I really didn't. I mean, it's not a guilty pleasure. I only am watching if I'm a hardcore completionist. But at times I'll only revisit the first 2 films, and that's it. But I only did last year for the anniversary of Superman. The film was released on July 24th, 1987 in the UK, the US, and in Canada. Well, this film didn't do too well, and it managed to make a worldwide gross of $36 million against its $17 million budget. This fared the worst in the office. And the series went dormant for the next 19 years. Reeve regretted his decision to be involved in the film, saying this film was a catastrophe from start to finish. That failure was a huge blow to my career. Plans were made for a 5th one, but they never came to fruition. And with Reeve's 1995 paralysis, made any further development of sequels involving him in the starring role possible. So Time Warner let the Superman feature film franchise go undeveloped until the late 1990s when a variety of proposals were considered, including several that would reboot the franchise with different versions of the character and settings. Eventually, in 2006, almost 20 years after the release of Superman 4, a soft reboot of the series Superman's Return, and disregard the events of the previous 2 films. Through the Arrowverse crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths seemed to end. Well, though the Arrowverse crossover event on Crisis on Infinite Earths seem to indicate that both 3 and Returns were in the same canon. This film's reviews are terrible in my view. It sits at a mere 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, saying that Superman series bombs out here. The action's boring, the special effects look cheaper, and none of the actors appear interested in where the plot's going. So, yeah, I agree and what have you. The New York Times weren't too thrilled, although they did say Kidder's portrayal of Lois Lane was sexy and earnest. Yes, at least we get more of her after not seeing much of her in the last film, Superman 3. The Washington Post described it as more sluggish than a funeral barge, cheaper than a sale at Kmart. It's a nerd, it's a shame. It's Superman 4. And several critics disliked the special effects. Yeah, the effects they weren't that great though, unfortunately. This was also voted number 40 on the 50 worst movies ever by readers of Empire magazine. It also got nominated at the Razzies for 2 of them: Worst Supporting Actress for Mariel Hemingway, but lost to Daryl Hannah for Wall Street, and Worst Visual Effects, but that went to Jaws: The Revenge. And seriously, if there were any worse movies from this year, I'd rather rewatch this over Jaws: The Revenge. That movie's horrible, but don't take my word for it. So anyway, I just never do go back to this. Only if I decide to be a hardcore completionist. That's why I'd only recommend this to hardcore completionists. But my word to you is avoid this at all costs. Since I'm getting ahead of myself, they used a little bit of an update of the Superman March from John Williams. But anyway, Alexander Courage did the score for this. For our cast, we have Christopher Reeve back as Superman, and Gene Hackman back as Lex Luthor after being absent from the previous film. He even provides the Nuclear Man's vocal effects, while Mark Pillow portrays the character. Jackie Cooper returns as Perry White. He's still good. Mark McClure's back as Jimmy Olsen. He's good. And Margot cares Lois Lane as well. John Cryer, who this was one of his early films before he went on to do Hot Shots and several others, and will go on to co-star with his Hot Shots co-star Charlie Sheen in Two and a Half Men originally. Plays Lenny Luthor. Yeah, he's kind of a nutsoid, the character. He's alright. He's not great. Sam Wanamaker played David Warfield. Okay character. Mariel Hemingway played Lacey, and, well, she's okay. Not great, though. So, anyway, we have William Hootkins, who would actually appear in Batman a couple years later. Jim Broadbent appears in this as well. And they even had Susanna York's voice of Lara. Of course, she played that character in the first 2 films. So again, I am going to say, don't bother with Superman for the Quest for Peace. This wouldn't be worth your time. Only if you are a hardcore completionist of the Superman films, then it'll be a one-time watch, and that's it. But I'd say avoid this film at all costs. That's all I can say. Story's not too great, nor are the performances we got. Some of the performances are okay, but the score's all right, but the effects not great. So, what did you think of Superman 4: The Quest for Peace? Do you agree with what I say? Considering this to be one of the few worst films ever? Let me know in the comment section below. If you liked the video, click the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Join me next time when I bring to you the next episode. Do you remember where I'll be talking about brain games? And no, not the National Geographic show, the HBO show from the 80s. So, anyway, if you like this, consider checking out my reviews for these last few films that have been from the DCEU that have been humiliating failures and what have you last year. In the upper left hand corner is my review of Shazam Fury of the Gods. The upper right hand corner is my review of The Flash, and the bottom left hand corner is my review of Blue Beetle, which did get better response and what have you. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching. We will review Superman Returns later on here, and Man of Steel as well. So until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.